Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Robert Stickle. I'm also joined by my colleague Jim Patterson. Jim will be today's presenter and will discuss the business case for strategic portfolio management. This webinar is a new addition to our series of strategic portfolio management videos, so if you enjoy this webinar, feel free to watch the others we have available on our channel and look towards the next installment, which we'll be releasing soon. And as always, I hope that today's presentation grants you some insight into the world of project and portfolio management and gets you excited for the new developments happening within the industry and here at OnePlan. Thank you again. I'll now turn the presentation over to Jim.
Thank you, Robert, and welcome everybody. We're excited to present this topic to you today, really about where the portfolio management industry is headed and the rationales behind that. So let's get started. Many of us who are interested in this topic have been through the journey of more traditional project and portfolio management and the advancements that's made for many organizations. And we've derived benefits from whence we started. People are getting more clarity and consistency of their project management activities overall. They're helping define and pursue clearer objectives as far as an operational portfolio. It makes planning of these things more realistic and complete, and you get visibility of that as well as optimization of resources. Sometimes we're improving the quality of deliverables and just getting better visibility overall for reporting and decision making. And those things have, been really true as far as fulfillment of the PPM promise. But like anything else, this discipline and this practice is moving forward. Today, Gartner states that, aligning with strategy is very important. Executing strategy in a digital age requires tools that connect the shared objectives of the business strategists, those making the strategies, and those who then have to execute the change or execute on the things to deliver the true business value. And in that regard, the next step that many people are not yet doing is, are we aligning what we're doing on an execution perspective in our portfolios with the strategies and the outcomes that the organization is desiring? And as Gartner sees it, it really is a couple things. It's a set of processes that involve people and strategy and the operational parts of the business, but it's also a system. It's a system of practice. It's a system of strategy development and planning, organizational alignment with those strategies, building those operational plans, monitoring and learning from those things, and then adapting afterwards after we test it. So it really forms the basis of making sure that we're doing the right things and delivering on outcomes rather than just delivering for the sake of delivering. Now, if we take this the next step further beyond just strategic alignment, there's this concept now of strategic portfolio management, often acronymed as SPM. And it's a set of business capabilities, processes, and supporting portfolio management technology that does a number of additional things. So whether or not you have an EPMO, and we'll talk more about that later in the presentation, it's required to support enterprise-wide strategy to execution alignment and adaptation. Many organizations still have departmental or business unit types of PMOs, and cross-functionally, we have to have enterprise-wide ability to align and execute on these things. An SPM technology factors in more than just your items in your project portfolio, and whether or not it's aligned with strategy, it really has to factor in other dimensions or elements. True SPM has to figure in your business capabilities, where they are and where they need to go, the investments, your programs, the digital and physical products you have at your disposal, the assets you have to deliver on these things, the applications and the projects themselves. So there's more dimensions in an SPM landscape to consider if we want to have a more holistic piece of information to track and also decide what we should be working on. And a complete SPM solution must capture and define and prioritize the business strategies, then manage the execution of the initiatives and projects that support those strategies, and then have full visibility into the core IT assets that are needed in order to execute on this digital age. So the solution supports three key stakeholders: leadership, who sets direction; the IT management, who owns the critical assets; and then the execution teams that have to deliver on the projects that support those objectives and outcomes in the first place. Now, the key attributes of SPM, given the fact that we're moving into these, are portfolio alignment. We have to make sure that we're all in alignment across the entire organization, not only with each other cross-functionally, but also with the strategies and the outcomes that leadership is guiding us to. We also have to make value-driven decision-making. Are we delivering value? Are we delivering outcomes, not just delivering for the sake of delivering something? If we deliver something that doesn't add value or we deliver the wrong thing, what's the point of delivering? And then ongoing portfolio flexibility. As this digital age, as things both external and internal change relatively quickly, we need to be able to adapt and we need to be able to respond. And we need to be able to do so in the context of all three of these elements. So, strategic portfolio leaders are forming critical partnerships with digital business leaders to achieve desired business outcomes. This is a statement from Gartner's Strategic Portfolio Leaders Business Case for Strategic Portfolio Management. Meaning, if we want to have these things aligned, we need to have the people who are outlining the strategy, those strategic portfolio leaders who are executing on those things, align with the digital business leaders, the ones who are actually setting the course, the ones who are charting the place that we want to be. And we'll talk about the why over the course of this presentation, but what exactly do we mean by a digital business leader? For the context of our presentation today, it's going to be any executive in an enterprise who participates in strategy and investment decisions to achieve strategic digital business outcomes. So any of that senior leadership that's involved in those things is who we're talking about as a digital business leader. So there was a survey done for the Gartner paper that we're basing a bunch of this on today. And there was about 156 respondents from organizations in the US, and all of them are greater or at $500 million in worldwide revenue. And what is the makeup of the people that responded to this? Well, 50% or almost half of them are leading business decisions and strategies within their organizations. 3/4 of them are involved in PPM activities at the highest level. So they're actually involved in that process. And 75% or 3 or 4 are CEOs or report directly to the CEO. So some high level input from senior leadership within organizations makes up the data that part of this presentation is based on. And many of them are engaging indeed in programs and portfolios. These digital business leaders are actually involved in the process at that high level for program and portfolio management in their organizations. They have a seat at the table, they're actively engaged, and are participating in the process, which helps facilitate some of that alignment. The population of those surveyed also represented a wide range of industries. So you can see there was manufacturing, technology, retail, healthcare, and other organizations represented. So a wide swath. This isn't biased towards any one particular vertical industry. And the digital business leaders in this survey, the top 3 challenges they said that they face for success is 1, orchestrating enterprise change. As things are changing and we're moving into a digital age, it requires entire organizations to move. And sometimes those are big battleships to turn 1 degree at a time. So it's a challenge, and they found that challenging to orchestrate that enterprise change. Related to that is then prioritizing and executing on cross-functional investments. Organizational-wide change requires cross-functional involvement, cross-functional investment to make sure that we can get the outcome we want at the end of the day. If certain parts of the organization aren't rowing in the same direction, we may not have a successful outcome. And the other part of it is speed to deliver value. In this day and age, change is happening and the pace of change is happening quicker and quicker. And if we don't deliver quickly, we may lose competitive edge, we may miss opportunities, or we may just fail altogether. And the idea here is that these are the top 3 things that they cited in this survey. Now, if you want to drill into this a little bit more, the top ranked challenges of orchestrating these things, top to bottom, the orchestrate enterprise organizational change, it was named in 65% of the respondents' responses as one of their top 5. Just like prioritize and execute on cross-functional investments was named in 63% of the top 5s. Same with speed to delivery and drive business digital business acceleration, 62%. And pretty good top 5 participation from implement key operating model changes and business value of digital business investments. The darker line within that was what percentage of the respondents actually indicated that that was their number 1 choice as they go through. So that's represented in all of those 5 as well. So once again, some common challenges that we see across from those surveyed. So given that, how are these leaders responding to these top challenges that they have cited? Well, 49% of them have an EPMO function, an enterprise project or program management office, meaning they have an EPMO that just doesn't span IT or just doesn't span some business unit or department. It really has a purview across all the organization, all the initiatives across that organization. Given what we're looking with executing digital strategies and overall strategies of an overall organization, it generally requires cross the board change, cross the board innovation, cross the board development in order to meet that objective or meet that strategy and achieve those outcomes that people are looking for. And many of these, almost half of them, have decided that implementing an EPMO is important for them to get that done. Well, why? It's because digital business leaders are determining that an EPMO is giving them a competitive advantage over those that are not doing it, and they're convinced of that. And part of this is building that case as to why those things are. Well, from the survey and from the assessments of those in the survey, both those with and without EPMOs, the question was, how would you characterize your enterprise's overall performance to the following outcomes relative to its peers or competitors with a scale of 1 to 5 in that? And those that basically responded in a positive direction on that, the numbers came out that organizations with an EPMO are almost twice as likely to be ahead or far ahead of their peers and competitors on the following: responding to major internal and external disruptions and ongoing changes, being agile and flexible, and being able to adapt to those things in a positive fashion. To be able to quickly launch new digital initiatives. How fast can we get on that train? If we're responding to that, we then have to execute on the response that we've cited that we need. And how quickly can we get there? How quickly can we complete that, let alone launch it? And then realizing business value from digital initiatives. Just because we start on something doesn't mean that we finish it well and get the outcome we want. The organizations with an EPMO are twice as likely to succeed in these things and realizing the actual business value from going through the lift on that. So we want to drill into this a little bit more. Organizations with EPMOs are ahead in digital business performance. And this is in relation to their peers and competitors. So in that survey of 1 to 5, the ones that actually said that they were ahead or far ahead, if you look in the light blue, those are the responses of the respondents who actually have an EPMO in use, which was about half of the respondents. And basically, for example, responding to major external disruptions, 62% of them said that they were ahead of their peers, whereas those without an EPMO, significantly less, or a gap of 20% in there. Calculations making that an odds ratio of 2.3 times likely that they would succeed with those initiatives having an EPMO. And you can see the numbers for responding to major internal organizations disruptions, realizing expected business value from digital initiatives, the speed of launching new digital initiatives. Those are up there with all high numbers that are at or around 2 times the odds of succeeding with those and keeping ahead of their peers. Other items that you see down below there, responding to ongoing changes, internal or external, generating new ideas that become innovations, speed of innovation funnel, responding to COVID-19 pandemic, which is something that has been challenging, and the speed of completing digital initiatives. So overall, outside of the speed of completing the digital initiatives, everyone has a decided advantage over those that don't have PMOs by those who do have EPMOs. So digital business leaders without an EPMO, what are they saying? So when they're asked what benefits they would like to achieve in their organizations, 60-80% of the digital business leaders without an EPMO would be likely or very likely to champion its adoption. So those that don't have one, 68% of them want one, or they think it would be of value to them. So if that's the case, what are the most prized benefits that those people thought they would get from having an EPMO? So fairly consistent with the other results is that execution of large enterprise-wide initiatives would improve for them if they had an EPMO. Also, quick and effective portfolio prioritization in a cross-functional enterprise-wide portfolio scheme. So in those regards, these are the things that they say that they would like to achieve, which also dovetails with benefits that you get from having an EPMO and using strategic portfolio management. So we drill into that a little bit farther. you'll see that those things are the top two, but they're by no means the only benefits that people see. Promoting and enabling organizational change, resources across investments and initiatives, which is always a pain point for organizations. How to manage interdependencies between these initiatives and collaborate across groups and align strategies, et cetera, et cetera. There's benefits that the ones without PMOs see and have cited as things that they think they could get, but they're not getting today. So what's stopping these leaders from getting the EPMO that they want? Well, the top hurdle in that is that the business that they're in doesn't understand the value of an EPMO, and it's hard to get it off the ground initially if you can't establish that value in the business case. What are other hurdles that people face in EPMO adoption? Well, key hurdles to implement EPMO for those where an EPMO is not in use: the business doesn't understand the value, other business priorities take precedence, business culture doesn't support, lack of support from senior leadership, lack of PPM leadership, lack of talent, and negative perceptions of EPMO. So these are all factors that get in our way. So how do we overcome them? Probably by making the right case and establishing the value so people understand and accept the value that can be had. So there's an opportunity cost for not doing that, because the world is moving with or without us. There is that, as I said, that increasing pace of change and environmental turbulence that it's causing a greater strain on organizations, and the need for agility and responsiveness is greater than it's ever been before. And it evolves capabilities that probably only having an EPMO purview could actually help us surmount that successfully. And also, maybe changing the tooling that we have to support the things that we want. But the opportunity here is that Gartner found that only 16% of organizations are highly effective at all three key attributes that I cited earlier for SPM, meaning there's a huge opportunity for improvement across the board by organizations. And if we don't adopt SPM and a more of an EPM approach, we have the risk of a more fragmented approach to the work that we're doing that can lead to excessive cost due to conflicting priorities because we haven't reconciled those, maybe redundant processes or duplicate initiatives, and maybe even misaligned goals, meaning that we're working on the wrong things. And even more so than that, in a more distributed cross-functional environment, sometimes we let the general day-to-day pressures of operations take over, meaning that local customer needs, that we overemphasize them, and we make decisions to address those near-term tactical things, and then let it pull us away from enterprise-wide strategic objectives that are needed for the overall health and longevity of the future of the organization. We have to be able to carve out and plan purposely the time to do those things and not let the day-to-day operations prevent us from not having time to do that. Now, some projections from Gartner is that by 2025, 70% of digital investments will fail to deliver the expected business outcomes due to the absence of strategic portfolio management approaches. By 2024, they see that EPMOs, half of them will have the ability to rapidly sense and orchestrate changing conditions. By having that organization-wide purview, they become part of that central nervous system for the enterprise to help detect and adapt and support leadership in the direction and the redirection that they have to make in their decisions and their strategies. And by 2024, 80% of digital business will integrate SPM and execution technologies and put new frameworks in place to help them sustain that. So this is not something that is going away. This is not something that people aren't doing. It's here and it's rapidly advancing in the life cycle of the SPM approach. Now, one plan, we talk about this because we provide solutions that provide a path to strategic portfolio management on the dimensions that are needed. For example, business leaders can use the strategy pieces within our solution to chart, document, and execute and track the execution of those strategies within the tool set. We have the operational portfolios and initiative portfolios where the execution leaders and the EPMOs themselves can execute on these things and make decisions on what to be working on and making sure that they stay on track and support what the business leaders are laid out as strategy. And the technology piece really is about things like enterprise architecture and other assets that may be required to be updated, addressed, or considered in order to succeed at the initiatives that we take on and ultimately get the outcomes that the business leaders are looking for in the strategy. So once again, adds more dimensions to the portfolio management process. Now, not everybody's in the same place, and it seems maybe a daunting thing to tackle all of it at once. And one plan meets you where you're at. You can take kind of a crawl, walk, run approach to that. And wherever you're at, you may be doing some traditional light portfolio management today, or more advanced things. But one plan can meet you where you're at and be a path for growth to a very mature SPM process. We do that by providing a portfolio management solution that connects from the strategic level all the way down through the details of execution and everything in between. It has the capabilities within itself to do the things that we talked about here in this, but also to be able to build plans in different fashions in waterfall, agile, and hybrids, or even connect to tools you may be using. So that does not need to be a barrier to your adoption to something like this. If people are married to using Azure DevOps or Jira, for example, for their Agile, we have connectors to bring that in. You could use your Microsoft project or project to the web, or build those things directly in one plan without needing those tools. So if we take that approach and we look at what one plan provides, it has portfolio management capability, both traditional views, more portfolio board views for the Agile folks, and even roadmap views for things like product-oriented folks and things like that, as well as what-ifing capabilities in there to adjust and evaluate scenarios as situations on the ground change. The resource capacity planning is built in there, which was identified as one of the pain points in the survey. The financial tracking, understanding what it's going to take from a financial and tracking those things on those initiatives that are supporting your overall strategies. The execution pieces that allow us to build waterfall plans or agile plans, both within one plan or connecting to other popular tools that are being used, and get consistent status reporting out of that. Even team member participation, because if we're trying to mobilize across a wide range of people across the enterprise, we need to have a way for the resources on your initiatives to status those things and provide feedback and be able to participate in a way that helps us get to the end line, both with time and with quality and with the right outcomes. Now, early on, people may be just trying to harness all the work that's going on in their organization. If you're in that kind of more of a walk stage, bringing that all together with mixed methodologies and mixed tool sets that people are using, one plan gives us the ability to do that and roll those up into different programs and portfolios and even align those with strategies. The key is to give the teams the ability to do what they want, but don't let the tools that they're using that they don't want to let go of be a barrier to moving towards strategic portfolio management. Even in shops that are fully agile and doing everything the same way, it's a way of bringing together the language and managing these things in a way that gives leadership the information they want, but give the teams the tools that they want and having the metrics that they need in order to execute. So in this crawl stage, we might be just bringing cross-functional people in supporting an EPMO, getting all those different constituencies together into common portfolio or sub-portfolios in there in order to have a common enterprise view of all the projects and initiatives that are going on in the organization. It could be a combination of waterfall scheduling and Agile with Azure DevOps, or maybe Microsoft Project with Jira, or even all Agile. Maybe there's different organizations we run into that are using all different Agile tools out there. Maybe bring those into the mix so that we can actually get a holistic portfolio without turning everybody's world upside down necessarily. And this is all done with pre-built connectors that one plan provides, and we can talk about that more a little bit later. Now, if we're going to walk and take that next step that I mentioned in the outset of this presentation, the strategic execution and alignment one plan may be the next step, maybe not full SPM, but aligning your strategies with the project portfolio. And that means putting strategic plans in place, objectives and key results potentially, and strategy execution, and then aligning those strategies with your projects and initiatives. And one plan has a full strategy or OKR capability built right into the tool itself. So for example, if you build those strategies in one plan's tools for strategic planning and execution, leadership can not only identify it, but then they can track it here. And then with the other capabilities that are in the execution side of one plan, we can then align those things with those strategies and making sure we're working on the right things and prioritizing our decisions on our projects based upon what the priorities of the organization is, or what the priorities of leadership is on what strategies are most important or what directions are most important to the company or the organization. Now, full SPM, we go that to more of a run mode. That's where we start looking at other enterprise and business architecture elements, maybe looking at factoring in the application portfolio or a product portfolio, or maybe a set of business capabilities or value streams or other elements that we want to have. And then aligning those, because they're factors into a number of things. One, factors into how we might prioritize what we work on. Also factor in the things that might have to be modified or adjusted or upgraded in order to support the overall strategy. Applications might have to be modernized. Products might have to be reprioritized to support those things. And different business capabilities that we have, judging what our capabilities are today and how they might have to be upgraded in order for us to succeed. So all those things are factors, as I mentioned earlier on, in a strategic portfolio management approach. And what do I mean by that? If you take a look at that, maybe you have a business objective or a strategy to grow revenue 15% that leadership sets out. And there might be tangible key results that they set out to help us measure whether or not we're making tangible progress towards that objective. Now, once that's established, there may be things that are required to address in order to succeed. Maybe we have an order processing capability that hasn't been changed in a while. We need to upgrade it in order to get that revenue growth and throughput. And there may be applications that have to be addressed in order to support that capability, hence support that key result and that objective. And then the initiatives themselves that are then aligned to any one of those things that are all interdependent on one another. And if we don't deliver on all aspects of this, the business objective is at risk of not being delivered fully. Now, one plan can do all of this with a strategic plan that I talked about, with the enterprise and business architecture elements that we can define and track and capture data elements against, and then the project portfolio or the initiatives that are then aligned to all of it. All of this can be done right there in one plan. Now, as it gets more complex, these interrelations can get more complex. And one plan also has the ability to visualize these interrelations and boil it down in a very simple fashion. How are these projects related to key results or objectives, or how they might be related to products and applications and business capabilities? How different objectives and projects might be the focal point, and see how they span out and how they're associated and related to other things that need to be worked on. And then we can focus on the status of those things by looking at red, yellow, greens and see if any one of those elements is not performing well, so that we can focus on that to get it up to speed with the rest of the initiative. And reports along that way to kind of focus on that as well. Now, we talked about adjusting to changing conditions, and you need to have what-if capabilities to do that. And one plan has added a modeler to its solution such that we can evaluate different scenarios, and we can model them for different units or parts of the organization, or for the enterprise as a whole, where we can factor in what projects we want to select in and out, what our budget constraints are, maybe what resource constraints we have, and look at the dollars and do they track to that. We can compare different scenarios and what criteria they have as we evaluate which scenario might be best, or what are the resource implications of that scenario. Can we do this with the resources we have, or do we have to reassess based upon our resource constraints or our ability to get more resources? So those are just some of the things that was talking about a little bit earlier on, and I want to show you some of that stuff in action. And I think we'll start by just starting at a portfolio. And one plan allows you to have a flexible structure of a portfolio. And here I'm looking at a flat list of projects and epics, which are agile efforts, and looking at them in a variety of ways. I'm looking at just a list with KPIs, but I have different views in here that give me different data. I can maybe have a more financial oriented view, or maybe more something an effort oriented view, or maybe schedule oriented, that type of thing, and be able to look at them in those regards. I can also, as I mentioned, to support the EPMO, structure a portfolio hierarchy. Now you notice here, I have icons to the left of some of these projects. This is because we have connectors that are bringing in data from Microsoft Project or an Azure DevOps, or connected to a team site, or some that have no icons that are being managed completely in one plan by itself, meaning there's flexibility on how you want to execute on these projects based upon the tool sets that you have. Now, to support an EPMO, I might take a look more from a portfolio structure. And in this portfolio structure, you might have different portfolios for different parts of the organization. Now, I've got 2 here, but you can have as many of these as you want. And each portfolio might represent a different part of the organization the EPMO is supporting. In this case, I've got a portfolio and a set of portfolios that have programs within it, because I've established a portfolio hierarchy. And within this program, I have projects and epics that we're working on to support those. We can even determine access and permissions on who can get to these things based on which portfolio they're in, but they're all rolling up to a set of EPMO level data across all those different parts of the organization. Now, initially, the adaptive piece, getting those people to get the different constituencies from different parts of the organization that might be using different tool sets. I can drill into a specific project here, and I can establish what details I want to capture around a project, whether it be the metadata, the way we categorize a project, the narrative on the business case, for example, snapshots of the data of what we're doing in execution, and even the KPIs that we're tracking and the trending on how we're doing on those types of things. That information is all available, and you can structure this and have your own fields of data that you want to capture. On a work plan side of things, just very quickly, you can have a combination of things. In one plan itself, you can actually come in and you can actually have an agile backlog. And in this backlog work type, I've actually got an agile backlog built out with features and user stories in here, and even can build sprint plans to associate them with different sprints. But also, I could not only just build it in here, but if I have people that are using either Jira or Azure DevOps in this case, I could use a plan from Jira or Azure DevOps to populate this and synchronize that if I so desire. We have the ability to have different work types in here. And the ones you get out of the box are schedule, backlog, risks, issues, changes, key decisions. But you might have a waterfall plan here in the schedule work type where you've built out a waterfall plan, and people that have the types of projects that are more conducive to waterfall can do that and coexist in the portfolio with people that have more agile needs. And once again, you could build this in one plan itself, or you can connect to other tools that maybe help you do some more waterfall planning. Also, the resource capacity planning. Do we have the resources to do this? You can do resourcing in a very simple way. You can plan in hours. Many people start by saying, how many FTEs or percentages of allocation do we want? And you can do that flexibly to do each individual project or initiative, and then understand what your overall resource requirements are by looking at from an overall resource plan. And the same thing holds true with doing financial plans. And even just doing things like, simple status reports, having a consistent status report format on all the projects and initiatives within your efforts here allow you to simply create these and even add your narratives per period and be able to put these out to people and be able to support them and put them out in PDFs or Word or email documents, and even keep a history of all the status report periods that we have over the life cycle of a project. Now, in addition to a portfolio, if we're going to respond to changes in the marketplace, we might have to capture requests and ideas that come from the rest of the organization. We do have a requests or ideas area in the solution that allows us to capture different data surrounding requests. We might have the data or categorization we might want around that. We might have a process for approval. We might have narratives for business cases and other things and value statements, and even prioritization methods on the way we generate a prioritization score. And then we can also align these things with other elements in the system, which I'll get to. But the idea here is to be able to have a portfolio of requests or ideas which can later be reorganized and promoted into becoming projects or epics or whatever they might be, without clogging up your active portfolio with things that you may never consider doing. So the idea here is right now we've looked at the execution portfolio, we've looked at a portfolio of ideas and requests, but we talked also in strategic portfolio management about the strategy area. And in strategy, if you want to get to more of that walk level that we talked about, we can build objectives and key results or other strategic structures that you might want. In this case, if I expand this out, I have a series of objectives, which are strategies, and then tangible key results that have been identified as measuring sticks of how well we're actually driving towards achieving that objective or that strategy. For example, if I drill into this strategy of launch new products successfully, it gives me an idea, are there things that I'm dependent on? Are there other strategies that have to happen before I can do mine, and ones that are going to be dependent on me? And more importantly, what other things is it related to? If I zoom out here a little bit, you can see that the objective itself of launching new products is associated with a number of different key results, right? Which in turn are related to different projects and epics that are in here, some of which are red and not performing. I could even drill in and quick edit and look and what's the status on that particular project in order to get information on that right from here, from more of a quick pop-out view of how things are doing on that. From this, I could actually go back into the details and I could actually drill through to some of the key results that we have that were associated with that. These key results have their own measures. So if we're looking at tangible measures here, for example, this would be create 20 customer case studies, and that we had a target number of 20, and the current number is 10. We're at a 50% metric on this number, and we're associated with a number of other things here associated with that. In this case, I've got initiatives and projects and epics that we're associated with that have to happen in order for us to achieve this particular key result. Now, if I drill further through into one of the initiatives here and the projects that are here, it takes me directly to this support customer using mobile or whatever initiative I wanted to get into, and then drive through here the enterprise architecture elements that we might have. They might be associated once again with these key results. There might also be dependent or associated with different applications that have to be addressed, different products that we might be affiliated with that this has to be addressed in order to support success with those products. And the same thing with different value streams we might identify in a more agile approach. Okay, if we came back out here and we drill through to this social networking integration, once again, another initiative that is dependent or is related to this particular key result. And if I come into social networking integration and I say, look at it from here, I could actually come into the reports and do that same visualization I talked about from a project or initiative perspective rather than a strategy perspective. So here's the social networking integration that I have two projects that actually have to happen before I can do this, as well as one that's depending or waiting on me as I'm going through this. And that same runway view on how these things are all related are showing me, let me zoom out a little bit, and seeing that for this initiative, it's feeding two key results, which feed two different strategies here that we need to achieve, as well as is affiliated with two different products, two different applications, and two different business capabilities, all which have to be factored into the mix. Okay. Now, within that, you might say, how did we get to here with all these other elements in here? Well, one plan has an enterprise architecture component to this, where we can build different portfolios of these different things. So for example, as you build and mature into SPM, maybe you're aligning with applications at first, or maybe you're aligning with business capabilities and you build your way into this. But each of these can be a portfolio that allows you to have a portfolio of products, a portfolio of capabilities, a portfolio of value streams or applications themselves, which then can be part of that SPM or strategic portfolio management mix. So for example, if I drill into an application, you're capturing completely different information about the life cycle of that. You're capturing things like, and by the way, these are configurable to the data you want to capture. You might capture the entire life cycle of an application. You might categorize that application. You might have descriptions and vision boards for this, right? You might have prioritization. You might have an application timeline for its life cycle. You might have budgets for total cost of ownership that your different initiatives and things that you're doing with it have to feed into to track that overall cost. And then we've got things like which objectives are dependent on this application, as well as other aspects of this, like the initiatives themselves. You might go back and say, from a product perspective, right? Like the cloud marketplace product, right? It has its own set of information, and that may be completely different from what you're tracking for the applications themselves and their own life cycles. The idea is you can create as many of these different portfolios and entities in here that you need to factor in from a strategic portfolio management perspective. I guess the last part from a demonstration perspective for today anyway, is that modeler for the what if capability that we wanted to talk about. So in that modeler, we might do a variety of different scenarios. I have maybe some IT specific, even though we have an enterprise EPMO set of data here, I still might want to focus my scenario initially on the priorities of my department or my business unit, and then have the EPMO look at it from an overall organization-wide perspective. And in this case, for example, if I drill into one particular scenario, you get the ability to select which projects or initiatives will take part in any one given scenario. And after I've done that, I've got 105 that are actually in this scenario that I originally wanted to consider and have things like their prioritization scores or what key results or products they're associated with, et cetera, as I walk through that. Now, as I look at this and I go to analyze this, you might run a number of different scenarios. I may have run one that had a limit of a $25 million budget or one that had a limit of a $20 million budget. And as I look at each one of those things, you might see that out of that 105 with a $20 million budget, I could only do 80 of those projects. And a $25 million budget, I might have been able to do only 93 of those projects. And I can set different limits for target budgets for a new scenario or target effort for a new scenario, target benefits that I wanted. But here I can see, for example, for an additional $5 million of investment, I could achieve another $17 million in benefit. Might be worth go finding the money if we could do that, right? I could look at individual types of scenarios, for example, where if I was looking at the $25 million budget scenario on its own, I could come in here and look at that and determine what makes the cut when I do that. And if I go in here, I look at the projects that are in, I can also see which projects are out in that scenario, the ones that I can't do or what I might not be able to accomplish. If I look and then say, if I was really restricted to the $20 million budget, what would be in that, right? Could I, of the 80 or so projects that I have in there that I can do, which ones made the cut and which ones are out? So those are things that we can establish right in here. We can even go into details and compare individual scenarios one against another. So I want to compare the $20 million budget with the $25 million budget, compare. We can do some things and see which projects are included, which ones aren't, and which priorities are we're addressing. And we can have different parameters in here as we look at that. So the key is you can do these types of what-if analyses without impacting the core data. This is all sandbox scenario modeling, and you're not changing any of the core information in the product until you decide to execute on those things. The other part of that would be on any individual budget, you can start looking at these things and saying, with whatever scenario, what would be the resource requirements that we might have on this? If I wanted to look at this year and apply and see, do we have the resources to do that plan that we see up above? And as we can see, we still have hotspots where we may be over allocated and not have the resources to do this. Might require us to further adjust our scenario modeling. All right, let me go back to our presentation and let's talk about some summary and some next steps. Let's review a little bit of what we learned from the concepts from One Plan's experience and from some of the assertions from the Gartner group. Strategic portfolio leaders are partnering with digital business leaders to achieve business outcomes. That is happening today because of need. And these business leaders are much like our organization's leaders. They're responsible for the strategic outcomes and facing similar challenges to digital success. Some of those survey results show that there's a commonality of what they're facing and the pain points that they're facing. They are increasingly turning towards SPM and an EPMO function to overcome these challenges to digital success. And the ones using an EPMO are ahead of their peers and competitors. The ones without an EPMO are willing to champion one, mainly to improve the execution of large enterprise-wide initiatives and to quickly prioritize those portfolios. But their main hurdle is the lack of understanding of its value to the business, and only the partnership that we're describing here will clear this hurdle. So overcoming the main hurdle is how and why digital business leaders and the strategic portfolio leaders are forging partnerships to achieve desired outcomes. It's out of need and out of benefit and out of effectiveness that we need to form these partnerships and these alliances. Now, what we learned today about One Plan is that traditional PPM has provided significant advances for organizations over the years, and One Plan has supported that. But SPM is now expanding, and it's expanding on those PPM concepts. It's not replacing it, it's extending what's being done. It's adapting for the more modern digital business. and it brings together the additional elements of business capabilities, investments, programs, digital and physical products, applications, etc. And that one plan provides the most complete set of SPM capabilities on the Microsoft platform. Now, one plan does provide a variety of solution templates for different capabilities and customer needs. So we do have some pre-built things that might closely align with what you want and just need incremental configuration on your part with assistance from us. But one plan also integrates with other execution tools and solutions and with teams for content and collaboration so that you can leverage some of the things you're already owning, but get a more holistic portfolio that serves the needs of more of an EPMO function. And once again, one plan can meet you where you're at and enable your path to growth and maturity. So we can take you on that crawl, walk, run approach, even if you're at the crawl stage. We can get you maybe to more adaptive where we're getting these disparate tool sets brought in together into a common portfolio for leadership. We can then maybe go into a walk stage where we're starting to do more strategy and alignment of those strategies. And then we can run more into full SPM that leverages all aspects of strategy, execution, and technology and assets as we focus on all those dimensions that we showed here today. Now, one plan's passionate about this stuff. We focus on portfolio management for people. And in the Microsoft realm, we've been awarded 3 of the last 4 years as their global project and portfolio management partner of the year. And we're proud of that designation as well as the recognition we get from folks like Gartner and Infotech and the analyst community for our work and our thought leadership here. We do webinars like this all the time. We're currently planning what our next wave of webinars is, but if you go to oneplan.ai/webinars, there's a whole library of on-demand webinars of ones that we've done in the past that you can just view at your leisure. And we'll be having some new live webinars scheduled and up there very, very shortly. Now, we do offer free trials. So if you either go to Microsoft's App Source and search on One Plan, or you just go to oneplan.ai/solutions, you'll see that we have strategic portfolio management at the head of the list there, and just adaptive portfolio management and professional services automation and things. So we have different scenarios, but the main point here is that you can get started with a free trial. One Plan is happy to support you and chaperone you through that trial to get the most out of it. So please take advantage of this offer. If you're not quite there yet and you want to understand what it might take for you to get into a solution like this, we do offer a free roadmap workshop, which is a discovery session on the review of your current use of tools and solutions and assess your current requirements and desired future state of where you'd like to be, and then determine what the best course might be on how to migrate into a solution of this type, and maybe even put together a roadmap for you on best adoption success. And since it might leverage tools you already own, you may already own a good chunk of what it's going to take to do this. So the total cost of ownership might not be as much as you think. So next steps, the free trial, please take advantage of that and let us know. Roadmap workshop, or if you're not even there, and I gave you a very quick generalized demo today. If you want a more personalized one-on-one demo addressing your pain points and your requirements and use cases, just reach out to us at contact@oneplan.ai. Or if you don't want to contact yet, www.oneplan.ai has lots of resources, a lot of information for you to explore and investigate us a little bit further. So with that, I'd like to thank you for your time and attention today. At One Plan, we like to say that we're invested in success, meaning we're invested in your success, our customer success. You can reach out to that general contact email. You'll get a copy of these slides, so you'll have that information. Or if you want to address me individually or directly, my email is also in the slide deck. So once again, thank you for your time and attention today. Hopefully you found value in the topic that was presented today. And let's move to getting better in this digital age. Have a great day.